Today we're answering the question, does making my home more energy efficient actually save me money? And of course the short answer is yes, it does. So I'm going to kind of put it in two different buckets. So there's upgrades that you can do that would actually just stop you from using fuel or utilities. And then there are upgrades that you can do that will actually add benefit, like solar, for instance. So, the most common ones are appliances. So if you upgrade your fridge, that's a big one. You can save a lot of energy, especially if you've got a fridge made in the last few years. And then in the fridge that you have, even without replacing the fridge that you have, just bump up the temperature just by 2 degrees. Your food and your ice cream isn't going to know any difference, but it can make a big difference on your bottom line as far as what you're paying for fuel costs for that electricity. Same with your furnace. Now, my sister keeps her house at night at like 55 degrees. I do not recommend that. But, when you're sleeping, you don't need it to be super hot. But more than that, it's actually using those smart thermostats to program it so that the furnace knows when to turn on and off instead of changing it on the regular when you're cold or not. That actually is going to get you a much more even heat and save you a lot of money in fuel costs. So just a smart thermostat. These are the really low-hanging, super easy, relatively inexpensive fruit. Obviously, a whole furnace upgrade would be fantastic, but it's not absolutely necessary to save yourself a decent amount on fuel. And then, of course, hot water heaters actually use a decent amount of fuel. There are tankless ones, which are amazing. They only turn on when you actually turn on your hot water heater. And if you're a family of one, that's going to save you a lot as opposed to heating that entire 60 or 70 gallon tank full of water constantly. But if you're a family of 7, ironically, tankless hot water heaters aren't as great because they're often running as often as that full tank might be. So there are hot water heaters that are just the big standard, tank full of hot water heater that pulls heat out of the ambient air of your home. That's also an interesting one, but of course it depends on where the hot water heater is. If it's sitting right next to your furnace, you might be just kind of trading one for the other. Obviously I'm getting into the weeds here, but there's all kinds of interesting things that you can do. Landscaping is another one. If you do a good job of landscaping with trees, that'll definitely cut down on the heat on your home and on you. And of course, water-wise, landscaping makes a big difference on your water bill and also just in general, good stewardship of the earth. And then lastly, of course, solar. Most people aren't doing solar these days because it's so daggone expensive, but it is something to consider, especially if like all of your fuel is electricity. It might actually make a difference for you. And then lastly, on the super easy side, of course, there is just replacing your light bulbs with those LED bulbs. I know you might not like the spectrum of light that you get from them, but maybe use it in the ones that you use most often, like the outdoor porch light might be a great one to replace with LED, because those are going to be it's just going to continue to reduce your footprint, and when you reduce your footprint, you reduce your costs. Anyways, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on our Home Happy Hour.